Welcome to a new edition of LaLiga Insiders. Glad to be joined by Gemma Soler, Mauricio Pedrosa joining you. Gemma, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. How are you?
Happy to be here with you, Mauricio. Everything fine. Just landed from Lisbon and with the Champions League.
Yeah, you had a chance to be in person for that was a great game, but also a great weekend of La Liga action coming up. This is what we have in store for all of you in this edition of La Liga Insiders. Barcelona, a lot of injuries. Real Madrid with a very important game, and of course, all the information from our insiders, Gemma Soler, and we'll have our extra time. But let's get things started with Barcelona. And we all knew coming up after the international break, injuries is the big topic for Xavi and his team. How have they been able to handle that? Because we see the list right here, and it's not only a lot of players, some of them are actually starters for the team. We all know Ronald Araujo won't be around for a while. Jules Koundé, Memphis, now we have to add Hector Bellerin, Frenkie de Jong, Frank Kessie, and Christensen, who was injured during that Champions League match against Inter de Milan. How's morale with Barcelona considering all those injuries?
Well, not very well regarding to injuries, especially because all happened so fast. We were talking a couple of weeks ago that it was the best start ever for Barcelona. No muscle injuries, no problem. Everything looked like perfect. Then that FIFA window came and everything happened so fast, with Koundé being the first to get injury with his national team, and another. And the worst thing is probably Araujo, because he won't be able to play until next year, and especially because 4 of them are in the defending line. So Xavi now is very thankful that he managed, after pushing so much to have 2 players for each position. So that makes a little less bad this really bad situation. And in this bad situation, we have to give a little bit of hope, is that Frenkie de Jong might be okay for this weekend's game against Celta. And Jules Koundé is working so much to try to make his injury shorter. His main goal was El Clásico, but we've been told that he's really trying to at least be available, probably not in the start, for the first final that Barcelona has this season, and is that game against Inter Milan. We'll see, but the situation is really worrying Xavi, that he studied so much to don't have to suffer with that. And the first and last international break before the World Cup, all these bad things happened.
Yeah, and we saw what he tried to do in Italy during the Champions League match that Barcelona ended up losing against Inter Milan. Piqué started on the bench. Christensen and Eric Garcia were the ones selected to start that game, and not until Christensen was injured, Gerard Piqué was able to finally see some minutes. And we all know the relationship is not right now really good between Piqué and Xavi, but does this mean that we might see a little more action from Piqué in the upcoming
Of course
games?
We will, because Xavi has only 2 healthy center backs, Eric Garcia and Gerard Piqué, and the thing is that one of the captains of Barcelona, Gerard Piqué, he's been performing quite well, even though he was considered like the 5th center back in the squad. He's performing well, and we're talking about a player with a lot of experience, and he was in all the starting games last season. And he makes mistakes. He's not that fast anymore. He needs help from the other center back and from the fullbacks, but he is a completely professional and capable player. So he's a reliable center back. He's not Xavi's first choice. It's the 5th, actually, as I mentioned. And his personal relationship is not at their best. It cannot be when your former colleague is your coach and you are the last in that school to be put in the field. So but they are professionals, and that personal stuff, it won't be a problem. Not by now. We will see when the rest of the center backs are back, and if Piqué goes back to the bench, maybe the relation will be back again, and it can be a little bit of tension or messages that we have been experiencing.
Yeah. Now, we all knew that the back line for that game against Inter Milan, we needed to put some attention to see how he was going to perform. But then from midfield up forward, we pretty much saw the team that Xavi really likes. And in the end, Barcelona went back home after losing that match. How do you feel this result has impacted the team so far?
It has impacted a lot in a bad way because it brings back some ghosts that we've seen in the past with Barcelona playing abroad in Europe, because it's such a tricky defeat, because your focus has to be now 100% in the Champions League, not in La Liga. For the very first time in a lot of match days, you are back in being a top in La Liga, and then you have to lose your focus in a moment where you have 7 injuries. You need to think of that Inter game at the Camp Nou as a final, and yet you have Celta de Vigo in the weekend, and you cannot make a bad performance because it's not the best way to get to a final, having a defeat or a draw in the previous match. So it's a very complicated situation what Barcelona are facing right now. No one were expecting a defeat. They played against the 9th team in the Serie A. The Simone Inzaghi were in so much crisis, and Barcelona put them back up, the coach and the players. So it's a really tricky, complicated momentum because that is a final. You can maybe lose El Clásico and you can try to arrange it, but it's a really and in the positivity of the players, it affected also a lot. It was a tough defeat.
Yeah, because it was the result, and as you mentioned, that completely compromises Barcelona trying to move forward past the group stage, and we all know the implications if Barcelona doesn't make it to the round of 16, and I'm speaking of financial implications because of the money that the team would not earn by not making it to that stage, and I'm pretty sure they don't want to play Europa League anymore. They don't want to play on Thursdays. They want to play Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Before moving on to the next topic, let me ask you this. Is one thing the result, it's a different thing the performance. What did Xavi have to say about the performance of his team, and how concerned was he after that defeat in Italy?
He was concerned, but if you watch the 90 minutes of that game, you might say, I think you can say, and it's fair, that they didn't deserve a defeat. Not only talking about the referee and that's hands and everything, but the second half was much better. Barcelona deserved much more. They had a terrible first half, and I think Xavi was wrong with what he expected from that game. He corrected it, and I think if they play this game 10 times, I think Barcelona would have get a draw at least in 8 of them. But it wasn't that day. They were unlucky. They were maybe they didn't were that much right in the forward line, and so they got a defeat. This is football, and it's so unpredictable. That's what we love from that.
Now they have to host Inter Milan the next week, and then they're hosting Bayern Munich, with pretty much a lot on the line for Xavi and his team. Let's move on to Real Madrid. They're going to play Getafe for La Liga, and after losing that perfect streak that they had, only winning results, finally they get a draw against Osasuna. Benzema misses from the spot, and then they have the performance against Shakhtar Donetsk. What can you tell us about the way Real Madrid will face this game, knowing that they finally dropped some points in the league?
Well, they showed us that they are humans, because at some point we were starting to think
they're not a machine. They're not a machine.
We were like, okay, this is a machine. And sometimes when you were watching some games, they were not perfect, they were not brilliant, but it was like an engine. They worked like played out of memory, and it was very similar of what we saw last season. So it was like these guys didn't have summer holidays or didn't go to the beach or what. So yeah, they proved that they can be humans as well. It's a special game. It's a Madrid derby as well, going to Getafe. None of both teams won in the last match day, so they will try to have a positive result, of course. And I think Benzema, after injury, not playing very well in the last two games, I think he might have had some time to be at his best, and we might see another version of Karim Benzema. And the other thing I think we have to look a lot at Real Madrid is that they have been having problems in the back line. So let's see if Getafe, which is not either a team that will push that much, but we will see if they manage to get a clean sheet, something that they haven't been able to do in the last match days.
Ancelotti was very displeased the moment they conceded that goal against Shakhtar. And watching from TV, it wasn't clear who was he yelling at, because the obvious answer is, he's very upset with his defenders, but it seems like he was yelling at Tchouaméni for losing an easy ball, and that created a chance for Shakhtar Donetsk. Now, I'm not saying it's time to panic or anything, because if you watch the game, the 90 minutes, Real Madrid could have easily scored 5 or 6 goals. They didn't. But it's dropping points against Osasuna, and it's not having a more comfortable result against Shakhtar. Is it okay to be just a little worried that there might be a small drop on Real Madrid's performance after the international break?
Well, I think fans are a little bit worried with that fact. They cannot be very worried because they got 9 points from possible 9 in the Champions League, and they are co-leading La Liga. But Ancelotti is very worried about that. Why? Because he doesn't have to worry about the forward line, because Benzema is maybe having a cold, but he's great, and we want to be talking about the rest. But he's not the defensive line is not that much reliable as the previous seasons. And if you have Courtois at 100% fit, this might not be a problem, but Courtois is a human too, and sometimes gets injured, sometimes makes mistakes. So Ancelotti is really worried about that, and that's why Mauricio, as you pointed so well, he was so upset. I mean, come on, you're winning, you're gonna win Shakhtar Donetsk, but he was so upset because you can concede a goal against Shakhtar, you can make this mistake against Shakhtar Donetsk, but if you do that in El Clásico, you remember what happened last season in that Clásico in the Bernabeu. So that's why he is so obsessed and upset about the back of his team and worried, and he's trying to work on that.
Yeah, and next week we'll have plenty of time to talk about El Clásico and how Real Madrid is really looking forward to revenge for what happened last season and that final El Clásico against Barcelona. Now, I want to ask you about Rodrigo and Vinicius, and here's why. Karim Benzema has been with the team over a decade, and he has an expiration date with the club. But these two youngsters, they are the future, and the numbers are really, really good. That's 11 goals combined, 7 assists combined, considering all competitions. How important is it for Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti that these two, Rodri and Vini, perform consistently at this level?
It's super important, because at the beginning of the season, when everything happened with Mbappe, he didn't arrive, Real Madrid didn't have a shiny signing, everyone was saying, okay, maybe they need a forward. What about if Benzema gets injured? Well, this happened quite soon, and nothing happened. Real Madrid won all games without Karim Benzema, and they just got a draw the day that he was back. So it's so important that these two talented youngsters, let's be fair, Real Madrid paid a high price for these completely unknown Brazilian players, But this is a gamble, and this gamble, it was so right. And they have such a great connection, and they never surrender, they never give up. They want to be in the main role. They are aware that the boss is Benzema, but it's our two players with a lot of energy. Vinicius, he struggled a lot to adapt himself to Real Madrid and to La Liga. He was taking most of the times the wrong decision. He corrected that, and he corrected the shooting of the ball, and he's a great player. But I must say my favorite is Rodrigo. I love the energy this player has. He has this kind of magic, and he's that player. I remember last season when Real Madrid got that great winning streak at the end of the season, that Rodrigo was never on the start, never. He was always on the bench, but every time he played, something happened. And I love this kind of player that they come. Sometimes it cannot be always good, but it's a player that it's a game changer, that you know that when Rodrigo coming from the start or from the bench, something is going to happen when he's in the pitch.
See, to me the biggest difference is I think Rodrigo has a higher ceiling than Vini. Vini has been fantastic. His progress has been outstanding. But for tactical decisions, Carlo Ancelotti has had to play Federico Valverde more on that right winger as a starter, and then of course he drops more. But now that Luka Modric hasn't been playing as much and Valverde is playing in that spot, that opened up that window for Rodrigo, who again I believe has a higher ceiling than Vini, and the future is bright of course for Real Madrid. All right, it's time to move on to our insider section. This is one of the things that I look forward the most in this segment, because here's where you tell us things that we don't know, nobody knows. And let's start with Lionel Messi and the possibility of a comeback to Barcelona in the near future.
Yes.
Gemma?
So let me put some context, because on Monday we were having the other insiders with Chris Alexander, and I talked about Messi and that possibility. This was just 24 hours before the bomb. And what I was explaining is that my sources told me that Xavi is 100% into that idea of having Messi back. Some people said that maybe to have to deal with a former player in your team, Xavi, Messi, having to deal with the minutes, what I'm going to do, like we were just talking about Piqué. That's not the case. Xavi is 100% fond of the idea of having Messi back. He really likes the new position role that he's having at PSG, and he's got thumbs up. The Laporte and all the board of members would be very happy, because of course they failed Messi. They did something wrong to the biggest legends of this club history. So what we can say in that story is that the bomb exploded on Tuesday. I think it was when Argentinian journalist Vero Brunati said that he will for sure be Barcelona player on the 1st of July. What we can say about that is that this is not 100% sure. It's a possibility. This wasn't a possibility a few months ago. Now it is, because there is a kind of better relations. They are working on that. Every time Laporta can, he makes like a kiss or something to Messi, because they want to work on that operation. But there are three possibilities. There's the PSG. They are working on renewal. There is a big chance that he decides to stay. He can go to the MLS, or he can go to Barcelona. The third option, it didn't exist. Now it's existing. Economically, we just had earlier today the Barcelona's vice president Romeu saying that it's possible in numbers to have him back, and that he's a legend. He made many miracles, so the doors are always open for Messi. That's the headlines. But I'm sorry to put some water in the coffee of the Blaugrana's fan base. But I was in Lisbon yesterday. I was in that game of the PSG. I talked to some people, and what they tell me is that Leo Messi right now, he's 100% focused in both PSG and the World Cup. He doesn't want to think on 2023. It doesn't exist right now for him. Only PSG and World Cup.
Yeah, so I completely understand if the door is open. The door has to be always open for someone like Messi at Barcelona. But I think it all depends on the World Cup. This is just a feeling, of course, because as you said, I don't even think Messi has made a decision. But I think it all depends on how well he does in the World Cup. If he wins the World Cup with Argentina, which by the way is a possibility. It's not a crazy thought to believe that Argentina can win the World Cup with the team that they have and how as you said it, how focused Messi really is right now. If he finally wins the World Cup, I think there's a big chance that he's like, see you later, I'm going to the US, I'm going to Major League Soccer, I want to live in Miami, and I'm going to have a great time. But not until then, not until January, after the World Cup, we may have some clarity on where this topic is going to go. Now, we'll stay with Barcelona, but we bring on to the conversation Atletico de Madrid and Antoine Griezmann, because it's been a topic regarding the usage of Antoine Griezmann by Atletico de Madrid. And everybody watching Atletico's game, waiting for that 63rd minute to finally see Antoine Griezmann on the pitch. How is this topic moving forward between Barcelona and Atletico?
Yeah, well, it's not official yet, but there is an agreement in principle. So, you know, the deal was that Atletico had to pay Barcelona 50 million in case that Antoine Griezmann played the half of the minutes that he is available. And then this crazy situation started to happen where he can only play for less than 30 minutes. And I think that was something terrible. So I'm really grateful, and I think Simeone and the fans of Atletico are going to be happy, but especially who is really happy with that is Griezmann, and that's what we wanted to explain, that we got from our sources. So our colleagues in Relevo got the scoop that there is agreement in principle. It would be 20 million plus bonus of euros, so it's less than the half of it was 40 million what Atleti had to pay. So it's the half of what Barcelona were asking for, 25. Eventually, it will be around 20. And we have to say that Antoine pushed a lot because the situation was being so annoying for him. He was tired of being under a lot of scrutiny all the time. He already suffered so much at his last seasons in Barcelona. He needed to focus as well and to be ready for the World Cup. He needed more minutes, and Atletico and Simeone needed more minutes of Griezmann, and to get rid of this strange situation. So, and what about Barcelona? Why they decide to make an offer to get sales on that? Is because they don't want to go to court. They prefer this money now, and we will be talking about a firm agreement being official in the next few hours, days for sure, because we've been told it's really close, and the player pressure put a lot to get this now so fast.
You know I'm a lawyer, right? And this is what lawyers will always advise. It's better to have a bad agreement than a good fight. So it seems like it's not going to be the greatest agreement for Barcelona, but in the end, they're not going to go to court. It's in no interest of anyone to keep with this fight, God knows for how long. Let's go to one more topic that has to do with Barcelona and their economics. This is the headline. Barcelona's economy from ER to floor. What does that mean?
Well, it's funny that we are ending up the way we were talking about hospital and Barcelona. You know, when Joan Laporta took the presidency, he said that sentence that Barcelona is on the UCI, would be in Spanish, ER, in the emergency room, because when he looked at the balance, the books, he was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do with that? So he said that sentence that it's been so famous. So earlier today, we had the numbers of this past season of Barcelona. There will be a voting from the members on just before the Barcelona-Celta game, and there will be profit. Why they managed to do profit? Well, the famous sleeves, the labors, the famous palancas managed to get profit on that. So that's why we say that they moved from the ER to the floor, but they are still in the hospital. No one should forget about that. These palancas is not money magic. They need to give this back, and it's some kind of mortgage. It would be nice, right, to do a palanca and have money. So now what they told us is that the obsession of Barcelona is cutting wages. It's too much. They are spending about 650,000 euros on wages. That's too much. It's a percentage. It's a crazy one. So they have a goal. It's reducing that to 500,000 euros in 2024. That might be possible because the contracts with the captains, Alba, Piqué, and Busquets will be over, and they can balance the book and make this ship that has been going like this into the wild sea to get a little bit more stable, and maybe if they do things right, to get out of hospital. But we end up as we started. It also depends on the getting to the knockout stages of the Champions League. Otherwise, as you were mentioning, it's really bad for economy. And in the budget, they predicted that Barcelona will reach at least the final 8. They are a little bit far from that now.
Yeah, that's like a $50 million hit if they don't make it to the quarterfinal. That's a $50 million hit for the budget if Barcelona, and as we stated, they are still in danger of not making it past group stage. All right, great info, Gemma, as always. Before we wrap things here, let's go to our extra time, shall we? I didn't know this about Real Madrid's goalkeeper Lunin, who, by the way, has been playing because Thibaut Courtois is injured. And I know some of our fans, some of our viewers might be able to relate with this. He's a great goalkeeper, but take a look at this quote. He said, "I did very well in futsal. I scored many goals and I have various best player trophies, top scorer, best assistant, but the pitch was for Football 7 in Kharkov, and that was not for me." He said he didn't like to run, he didn't like to be so exhausted after the games, and that's how he made up his mind that he wanted to be in goal, because he doesn't like running.
That's the magic of life, I think. Sometimes you don't know where the luck is gonna be. Yeah, this happened to many other goalkeepers, and I think it's good that you didn't play all your life as a goalkeeper, because you get experience and you can be in your opponent brain at some point, because you once were a forward, in this case in futsal. Or it has nothing to see, but it just came to my mind, the famous singer Julio Iglesias. You know, he was a Real Madrid football player.
Yeah.
He got injured. That was terrible for him at the moment. Well, I don't know, maybe he could have been a famous football player, maybe not, but definitely his life, I think, is more peaceful and made much more money being a singer than a Real Madrid football player. So you never know when the luck is, or when a decision can bring you so many success. Lunin, it's true, it's not in the stars of Real Madrid, but he is an international football player, and I think he has a nice, really great career ahead of him.
Hey, listen, Real Madrid is struggling to find a backup number 9 for Karim Benzema. Who knows? No, Lunin could be Karim Benzema's.
Yeah.
Karim Benzema's backup, so he could be the first. Well, I gotta tell you this: he wouldn't be the first player to be on the bench, both as a substitute goalkeeper and as a substitute number 9. The very famous goalkeeper Jorge Campos, who started his professional career as a number 9 and then transitioned and became probably the best goalkeeper in the history of Mexican soccer. Well, this has been a delight, Gemma. Thank you so much as always. I really enjoyed doing this.
Thank you. Adios, amigos.